It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're looking back at the Detroit Lions 2025 NFL draft class. We'll discuss each pick and what the Lions did overall in Green Bay to improve their chances to try and get to the Super Bowl for the first time in team history. We'll also touch on the draft overall and give our thoughts on some of the surprising slides some prospects took. We'll also discuss some of the possible position battles we may see at Allen Park this July when training camp opens and more. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzezinski Drew. I'm joined by Coach Andy Shield. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions draft class from 2025 that happened just a week ago. Coach, how you doing?
It does kind of feel like New Year's Day, which is kind of that the holidays are over feeling. Mm-hmm. Because, like it's a week past Christmas, which was day one of the NFL draft. And, now we're 51 weeks away or so. It might be, 50 or 52 weeks away from the next draft cycle, which, we don't just live for the draft anymore, Drew. We've got a fine football team here these days.
Yeah.
And we're also fantasy football players, so we partake in the league and we know what the goings are on or anyway. But it's so much fun, and we invest a lot of time in the winter towards this. And hey, I'm happy. I'm happy with what we did, and you even enlightened me to our last pick that we were just discussing before we started to record. Really, I think past drafts we were in the climb, and we had all these early picks, and we struck rich with so many good players in regards to JMO and Jahmyr Gibbs and Hutch and Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, and and the list can go on.
Yeah.
And even last year, adding a guy that really is going to be I think a mainstay within our offensive line. We'll talk about a little bit more in regards to where he fits in with the current guards that we selected, and Christian Mahogany, who really showed his wares. And we know Terrion Arnold is going to get better, and we're going to see more of Ennis Rakestraw. And it's this draft, I think, was a meat and potatoes type draft. Drew, what are your thoughts on what we did and all in all?
I think that's a good way to describe it. It was a more of a meat and potatoes type draft. You need it. You got to have it. I don't think they made a splash at all in terms of the guys. They took some good players, and we're going to talk about them. But I don't think they did raise some eyebrows. But what I did like to see, and because he's earned this, Brad Holmes I'm talking about, a lot of the pundits wrote, some of the moves, they gave up a lot, but who are we to question Holmes and Campbell? And I agree. Who are we to question those guys? You just named off a shitload of names right there, Coach, that are damn good football players. And there were people that complained and cried about Gibbs and Campbell and Laporta in particular. They're not doing that now. And
they're wearing their jerseys.
They weren't exactly. So, and that's cool. I mean, that's great. But at this point, I think, certainly when the national media is even doing that, a lot of the fans are too. I mean, there's always going to be, you can't please everybody, but most of the fans, I think, are trusting in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, what they're doing there, and with rightfully so, right? This is the best stretch of Lions football we've seen in our lifetime, and we're a lot older than a lot of the fans. We're in our 50s now, so we've seen more heartburn and heartbreak than a lot of the fans have, and I trust in what Holmes is doing, no question. But before we jump into kind of going in deep what the Lions did, let's talk about the draft as a whole, Coach. The big story in the whole draft was Shedeur Sanders. I mean, he was projected to be a first-round pick. We had him going in round one. There were 3 or 4 teams that seemed very likely to take him, and yet not only does he slide out of the day one, he doesn't go to round 5, and he goes to Cleveland, who already drafted Dillon Gabriel ahead of him. Your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders and why he slid that significantly far?
Well, I just think that they look at the value of paying that roster slot towards the player that Shedeur is. And it is a guy that, we featured and we talked about, but there is no wow factor to Shedeur's game. It's very managerial. And if you really look at his body of work, does he possess the arm strength and accuracy and strength to just be a kind of a a game managing, semi-mobile and mobile quarterback? No. Does he do anything with his feet that advances the ball downfield on third downs because of any lack of a capability with his arm? The answer is no. The answer is he's a very average quarterback that has only played for his father, that has grown up with very, very perceived little adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever adversity he is faced, it's basically been met with eye rolls. And this is the type of player they saw. He skipped out on certain things and tanked interviews and performances because he didn't want to play for those teams. And that's probably he's being advised by his father to do so. Well, we're playing their game. And the teams played that game back. And we saw how that worked for him. Now, I feel horrible about what happened to him with Jeff Ulrich and his kid, or, not Jeff Ulrich. It's not his fault. It's his damn kid who got, these phone numbers and was playing games with Mason Graham and Shedeur Sanders. And they certainly did with both. They made, and you know what? He's going to be paying about $150,000 out of his own pocket for his son's misgivings. And that was a horrible thing to do. That was a horrible thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is a human being and a kid. Okay. Beneath there is a very cracked ego. I am sure of it. So, Shedeur slid. And, I think last year, at least from my perspective, Drew, just kind of looking, at what we did and kind of where we thought some things. I think it was, and maybe it was because the talent pool was stronger last year. And maybe it was because there was just a stronger talent pool last year. We were more predictive and exactly where guys went. If you looked at our rankings, they almost cascaded that way. Where this year it was a little bit more of a an adrenaline line, a little bit more of a telegraph, an up and down line, which was kind of unique for that. So I mean, it was relative. Yes, we saw the runs on receivers. We saw that there's the top edge guys came off the board quick. Yeah. The top O linemen were coming off the board quick. So I mean, we as far as the Lions pick went, a lot of the guys there was a player there that we had really, really liked. But you know what? Looking into it more, there is a shoulder issue, and we really needed to get a guy that's going to be able to not get hurt. Because if there's one thing that we learned, you can go 15-3 with basically third string players if you have the right culture. And we want healthy guys. So hey, it was great. I think there was a lot of fine players, and there's a lot of intriguing picks and a lot of intriguing cities. And we made a couple of double moves as well too, which is kind of interesting at receiver and guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I was surprised they went to receiver route twice, and certainly we'll talk about that. Not opposed to it. It's like I said, who am I to question Brad Holmes? I'm not going to. But I definitely, there was rationale behind everything they did. It was I surprised, but now I'll tell you what. Like we had Imawari going there to the Lions in round 1, and we were very specific. We said we don't think they're going to re-sign Kirby Joseph. Well, then lo and behold, a week before the draft, they did, and it's like, well, that's cool. I'm like, I'm honest. I've never been happier to be wrong. It's like, oh, cool. No offense to Imawari, but we've got a guy. Kirby Joseph's a great player. He's going to be there for 4 more years. So that's cool. They were able to go in another direction, and you've got the safeties you want. Now you can look somewhere else, and that's what they end up doing. What your thoughts on that, Coach?
Yeah, and we talked about a lot of different things, and really, I guess maybe a lot of the tea leaves did kind of show. We probably were always leaning towards the defensive line. It just there was going to be more prospects there that are befitting of that slot. Than the old linemen that went ahead, and that just and some of it were just ahead of us. It does sound like we were real active in trying to make trades on day 2, not so much in day 1. So we were going to take what we were going to get at 28, and honestly, we picked the right position. I mean, yes, Nick Emenwari is available. However, we do have a safety plan, and we exhibited that, like you said, case in point, about 24 to 48 hours prior to the draft with the Kirby Joseph's extension. And Emenwari, the juries I saw a great box safety future for him in the league, and that's exactly what's being questioned by some others, based off of just how much deep safety he has played, and not being the most comfortable up in the box. Well, I saw it and saw different clips and saw a different use for Nick Emenwari that way, and who knows how he will be used. But that's, why maybe, he wasn't the first safety taken. That Malachi Starks was, which we on the Sports Puzzle podcast, we said he would be that first one. And if there was a round one safety, he would likely be it. But that was a position that saw a lot of high prospects go late, way later than we thought they would.
Yeah.
Xavier Watts being one of them, day 3 pick. I did not see that.
Well, the thing that surprised me the most with this draft was the amount of tight ends that were drafted. I mean, a lot of tight ends early and often. And Loveland went ahead of Warren to Chicago, and Warren went exactly where we thought he'd go in Indianapolis. By the way, he got a prank call too, from what I understand. It was just strange that obviously they put out a damn video about it. Just, it's immature foolishness, and it was wrong. But he wasn't the only victim in that scenario, and it kind of was getting painted that way. And it's like, no, there were others, and it sucks. I mean, it just shouldn't happen. I mean, you're playing with.
We'll do something different in regards to how these communications are disseminated in the future. It's going to be very encrypted.
Yeah, and absolutely, and there's easily ways to do it, and they're just going to have to get on board with it. I guarantee you, it'll change next year. I guarantee it. It has to. So let's jump into it, Coach. Let's talk about our first pick for the Detroit Lions, and that was at number 28. They stayed there, to your point, and they take our number 4 defensive tackle on the board, and that's Tyleik Williams out of The Ohio State University. Coach, talk about Tyleik Williams.
Well, he is a run plugger and anchor extraordinaire. Very, very tough on the run. Why he may be at 28 rather than having been picked in the top 20 is, what has been perceived as his skills as a pass rusher. However, he has phenomenal physical abilities to be an elite pass rusher. Once bridled and configured, he's got superhuman quickness and speed. He looks and operates not dissimilar to an Aaron Donald, whom the Lions passed on about a decade ago, or a little over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And we took Eric Ebron instead.
Mm-hmm.
He operates very similar to that when he's destructing blocks and those kinds of things. So this is an elite block destructing, foot moving, defensive, precise stepping defensive tackle. That plays with great anchor and balance because he's about 6'2.5", 6'3", 334 pounds. He can punch and pound and anchor and lock himself in like nobody's better business. He shows a lot of one-hand leverage on the inside, which means he's maintaining his inside control just using one hand, which means you're running your feet along with that great punch and drive and extension with one hand. And now that was against college athletes and college offensive linemen, which, comprise the NFL offensive linemen as well, too. They're just a little bit more evolved, but he can play block, and there's not a block that he can't play. He is a bull in a china shop on that inside. He can go to the 3 through the 1. And if we needed to widen him to a 4-eye, we could probably even work in that because of his quickness and athletic ability. But you get a big time run stopper, Drew, a big time run stopper that has the ability to become a good pass rusher, who is going to be a rotational presence, I believe, in year 1, evolving to a guy that could even become a borderline starter throughout the year. And long term is probably seen as a tandem player with guys like Alim McNeill and Lemuel Runzwike.
Yeah, and you look at the roster, and here's the reason that we were given that the Lions passed on Aaron Donald was just because they said, well, we have Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley. Yes, they did at the time, and that was 2014. In 2015, both were unrestricted free agents and both left. So right now, DJ Reader, he's a free agent after next season. Alim McNeill is likely going to miss at least the first quarter of the season rehabbing from that knee injury. You need this player. And by the way, when you look at it, Abdul Carter was gone. You know, the top 3 edge rushers, there were 4 edge rushers off the board already at this point. Tyleik Williams made a ton of sense. We both loved him. I really liked him a lot. I didn't think they were going to go at him at 28 because I thought there'd be a few more old linemen or edge rushers sliding back. And when a guy like Shedeur Sanders doesn't get drafted before you and some other, that's what ended up.
Off the board. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I never considered him at 60 because I thought there's no way he's going to be there. And well, obviously he wasn't. Love the pick. Love the player. I tell you what, once they get McNeil, Reeder, and him and Williams together, along with, you got Lopez you just signed, you got Wingo on the team, you still got Broderick Martin, who's really he's got to put up, or this is make or break year for Broderick Martin. He's got to show something this year, and you got Onwuzurike back for another season, and Levi can bounce out to the outside if necessary too. Pascal too. So it's a very good situation. I really like this pick. I think the fans are going to really, really grow to appreciate Tyleik Williams very quickly. And much like they embrace Snacks, they're going to embrace this guy too. Here's another guy they're going to embrace, Coach, because Kevin Zeitler left by a free agency, so there is an opening on that line at right guard. Now, they could have plugged in Graham Glasgow. Perhaps Mahogany could start there, but they go and draft Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. He was our number 2 guard, Coach. Let's talk about him. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is, we talk about position versatility, but let's make no mistake, this is the right guard of the future, maybe as of today. And if we had a starter, if we drafted a starter, Drew, this might be the starter that we drafted out of this draft. Because Tyleik Williams may be more rotational at first. Tate Ratledge is going to have every opportunity to become the starting right guard this year, and he ultimately will become the Lions' future starting right guard, barring injury, maybe as early as the preseason. We shall see. He's real good and understands and reads defensive fronts very well. He can communicate well with his combo partners. He can communicate well with the center, and communication is key. Look at the 2 schools in which we just drafted our first 2 players, Ohio State University and the University of Georgia. We are talking about players that play in highly, highly evolved, high up-tempo, very competitive practice philosophies and practice cultures. Practice culture is so key to the long-term success of a program. The best programs have elite practice cultures. These 2 come from that. They played in a ton of games on the road where it was loud and obnoxious. They also play in front of absolutely rabid home fan bases with the Buckeyes and the Bulldogs. So they're great culture fits for the Lions. And the Lions did another one right here with Tate Ratledge, just like they did with Tyleik Williams. It's a guy with a strong, powerful inside anchor, just like Kevin Zeitler did. Very, very similar, a very physical and precise striker. He's a very similar player to Kevin Zeitler. He's just much younger and a little rawer. Kevin's an outstanding football player. Wish him well down in Tennessee. Got to meet Kevin, and he's a good guy, and he's got a great family, and I hope he does well. But we did hear, Drew, is we've got maybe a Kevin Zeitler 8, 9, 10 years ago. Is really what we have in this kind of player. He can get himself to the second level, which, with our type of blocking schemes, we're not going to ask him to do a ton of pulling and kicking out. We like to do that with tackles and with our tight ends, and then we'll take it in our 12 personnel and bring in another tight end and do it. That kind of thing. That's kind of what we do with our kickouts. We use our guards as power guys, is power, double and bounce climbing type players. And this is a guy that can finish those types of blocks. This is a Detroit, even though he's a Southern boy out of down south and out of Athens, Georgia here these last several years. This is a guy that's going to do real well here. This guy is a grit football player.
Yeah, I love the pick. Love Tate Ratledge. Lions did trade. They were picking at number 60. They traded up 3 spots to 57 with the Denver Broncos. So the Lions ended up sending the 60th and the 130 overall to Denver. They got the 57 and the 230 back in return. So an even swap their picks. No complaints at all. But considering, and I agree with you, to your point, this is number 2 guard on our board. to get him at 57, thank you. I mean, honestly, fantastic. I mean, right now you're looking at, I don't think there's any doubt an event eventually, and perhaps this year, a starting defensive tackle and starting right guard on this team already. That's a beautiful thing. That's really awesome. So we look forward to seeing a lot more of Tate Ratledge in the future. Here's where it got really interesting, Coach. Third round, and I'll go over the trade because it was a kind of a complicated trade. The Lions traded up from number 102 to 70 with Jacksonville to get this pick. And then they sent picks 102 to Jacksonville along with 2 third-round picks in 2026. And then the Lions get that back the number 70 pick, and they take Isaac TeSlaa, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, who's from is it Hillsdale? He's from Michigan.
Well, no, he's originally from Hudsonville, Michigan.
Hudsonville, that's right. Yep, yeah. Hudsonville. Yep, third round, 70th overall wide receiver. He wasn't rated real high on our board, and part of that was because quite frankly, something like Pro Football Focus had him like at 23, I want to say. And there was another date, I think might have been Mock Draft Database had him like at 26. A few others were kind of late to the party on him, but Brad Holmes certainly liked him. Talk about Isaac TeSlaa.
Well, kind of the unique thing here, he almost touches the Sports Peninsula podcast. I know you and the lovely Jennifer Druzinski came out to Howell High School and watched the Mariners playing a state semifinal against Portland, which we were unsuccessful that time around.
Yep.
Had we won that football game, Drew, we would have played Hudsonville Unity Christian, led by quarterback Isaac TeSlaa. Yeah. So we almost played against him in high school. And, folks, he was a power T quarterback. He played in a wing T offense as a quarterback in high school and was outstanding, won a state championship, was very, very good there. And ultimately got his first opportunity at the next level in college to play Division II for the Hillsdale College Chargers down in Hillsdale, Michigan. So he went to Hillsdale at first, and he converted to a receiver at that point in time. And his elite athletic ability, allowed him to rise above onto the depth charts rather quickly. And by year 2, he had kind of asserted himself as a guy that might be able to take advantage of the transfer portal and portal up, as they say, and move into Division I for a greater exposure and look. And he certainly did that. He went from Hillsdale College to the SEC. So if we're wondering who Isaac TeSlaa is, and yes, he's a local, and we're going to get to another very intriguing element to Isaac TeSlaa. He went from Division II to the SEC. We are talking about an elite athlete here that can perform. He's a physical mismatch because he's a slot receiver. That is what he is. He that's the alignment that he played. He's alignment specific in certain regards here. Now, does that mean he can't evolve into an outside receiver? Of course not. He's 6'4", 214 pounds. Yeah. We're going to ask that of him. But I mean, he can track things down and really be a plucky, grabby player as regards to the ball, and he's got breakaway wheels at 4.43 speed. And there's a couple of clips. There's a real good clip of him coming across the formation, I believe against Florida, and just runs away from everybody and scores on kind of what really was a crossing route. So if you're housing balls like that against fast defenses like the Florida Gator defense, you have the athletic ability to do that same very thing here in the NFL. Now, can he line up outside? That's what he's got to learn to do and to develop. And we are talking about a developmental prospect here, Drew, a guy that's going to get on the field, of course. But, he is going to. But I think there's a lot of intrigue in regards to an Isaac TeSlaa, and what he really brings to the table. But more than anything that you get with this, is this a guy a gamble, so to speak? Well, okay, yes, you could say that. You could say that, and in all fairness, not be incorrect. Okay, the Lions did these, a top 30, draft interviews, and guys come in and they interview him. He came to his interview in a Lions jersey. Isaac TeSlaa, his favorite football team, professional football team, is the Detroit Lions. So what you're doing when you're drafting a guy like Isaac TeSlaa is you're gambling a little bit, yes, on his slot and where and his background and that kind of thing, but you're also betting on that as well.
Yeah.
That he is going to bring his absolute heart and soul to this thing because he wants to be that guy on his team that contributes and ultimately makes a big difference. So this is a culture pick. This is a physical dominance pick. The big, huge slot receiver like this. This is going to allow us to do some different things as well within some formations that I think John Morton may want to use too. So, I mean, this is another inside type receiver that can really help space things out in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people.
Yeah. I like him as a player. I really do. I admit I didn't scout him that closely because I really didn't think the Lions were going to really attack the receiver position that aggressively. I wouldn't say where they were aggressive, but they did take two. And we'll talk about the second one shortly here. But at the same time, I'm not going to question Holmes. Now, of course, you always worry about giving up draft capital because, quite frankly, this team's been built on draft capital. This team's been built through the draft. Unlike past Lions teams, which was, draft, but also a lot of free agency signings too. But that never really materialized. So me as a fan, I kind of cringe when they move up a little bit just because I love that draft capital. But I like him as a player a lot. I watched a lot of tape afterwards, and I was like, damn, he's got some speed. I mean, and the size is there. I fully expect him to compete with Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond for getting on the field for that third receiver spot. Now, I don't think he'll get it right away, but you certainly want to see, and I certainly want to see him out there when there's a four receiver set, something like that. I want to see him on the field. That'll come in time, but I think I love the athleticism, and you can't teach 6'4". You can't coach it or teach it. It's there. And
the last kid from the Midwest that wound up at the University of Arkansas that we drafted is a kid by the name of Frank Ragnow. He's been a pretty solid player, I'd say, all in all for us. Don't you think, Drew?
He's been pretty good. Yeah, last I checked, he's been pretty good. So, yeah, I'm not questioning the pick at all. Again, if anyone's going to find a diamond in the rough, it's Brad Holmes. So, looking forward to some really good things from Isaac TeSlaa in the future here. Let's talk about our next pick, Coach. And now I'm going to talk about, this was another trade up here. The Lions traded up from 196 to 171 with the New England Patriots. They sent New England pick 182 and 228 in return for getting 171. And they get Miles Frazier out of LSU, another guard. Coach, talk about Miles Frazier. He was number 7 on our board.
Yeah, we according to the Sports Monthly podcast rating system, which you worked so hard on and we try to cultivate this year together, we got the 2nd and 7th guards in this draft and from the Detroit Lions. So that's obviously a position that we definitely are looking to fortify here. And big Miles Frazier. Frazier is a player that came from Florida International, where he was a freshman All-American, and came here and came into Baton Rouge around 360 pounds. He came in very, very big. They kind of toned him down a little bit. But this is a big, wide kid, 6'5", 335. He's got, Tyler Booker type size. Mm-hmm. Very, very durable player. He's not gotten banged up very much, which I think that's a good thing to bring up. He does not have an injury bug to him a little bit. If there was one thing about Christian Mahogany, he had some of those things and some of those concerns. And he came into the draft process last year sick, okay? And that was a struggle for him. And, and he's fine now. However, with Miles Frazier, you've got that, true slant 6 engine guy that just keeps on going and going and going and going and going and does not take the ding. Another great run blocker with some position versatility, with the ability to play both guards and play a little bit of right tackle as well. This is a guy that gets movement. Okay, he's another great combo partner. You want to work alongside of Miles Frazier. It's Brian Kelly. Is a fairly calibrated offense. It's a very fine-tuned thing, and it's put some pressure on interior linemen to make calls and to climb and to do different things. And he did that very well there because he was a 3-year starter once he got to Baton Rouge when he transferred in from Florida International. Another guy that's, strike and engage and maintain his inside control very well. He played against a lot of high-level competition and did very, very well with it. Miles Frazier does seem like a guy that's extremely suited. And I almost wonder, what we are doing here because, we had a third-day pick. We drafted 2 guards last year, too. Mm-hmm. One of which I think is now becoming a tackle, and then Giovanni Manu. Yeah. He's going to be some sort of combo player, too. And then on day 3, we drafted, very similar. We drafted on day 3 again, Christian Mahogany, who wound up starting at the end of the year and had some great grades and really appears to maybe be the left guard of the future, where Tate Ratledge might be the right guard of the future. And then you have a Miles Frazier as the swing guard of the future, as a guy that could also bump Mahogany and create competition to where they could do all sorts of things. So where does that leave Graham Glasgow? Graham Glasgow is a guy that can also snap the football. So at the very least, he could be the 4th guard and our backup center in a heck of a kind of mentoring phase of his career, and a guy that is counted on, certainly, but is becoming more of a depth piece because we really saw the kind of playability Graham Glasgow struggled towards the end. And our offense wasn't quite the same as maybe it was at times during the Ben Johnson era and Ben Johnson's 2024 season either, because maybe we were lagging a little bit at that guard position. So we've really fortified that with some young, big blockers, Drew. And I'm excited for Miles Frazier. I'm not quite sure what his role will be. How about you? What do you see?
Yeah, I don't think he's in. I mean, he'll get an opportunity to earn a starting job. I don't think he'll get it. Certainly not year 1. It's going to be, you got Glasgow, like you said, Mahogany and Ratledge. In a perfect world, you'd want to see Mahogany and Ratledge starting with Glasgow as that first man up. If either one of those,
I think that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. And
by the end of the year, we'll see. But yeah, I think you're right.
And then, but Colby Sorsdahl needs to show something in camp. He's got to show something in camp. I'll be honest with you, I feel a lot more comfortable with Iosika than Sorsdahl. Iosika's played well when he's needed to at left guard. And tackle, yeah.
He's a left side guy. Yeah.
So Colby Sorsdahl is going to have to earn a spot on this roster this year. He's a 5th round pick from a couple seasons ago out of William and Mary, I believe.
Correct.
And so, he's had opportunities to play as well, and it didn't go quite as well for him as it did for Iosika. We certainly know Glasgow can. I mean, if you told me Graham Glasgow starting at either guard position, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm happy about that. But he is on the last year of his deal, and he is 34 years old. So next season,
the road almost.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense that the Lions doubled up on guard this year, and at the caliber of guard that they got in Ratledge and Miles Frazier. Yeah, really liking the pick. Frazier's great value in the 5th round. Great value in the 5th round. Ratledge is outstanding value in the 2nd round, considering really he has 1st round talent. Very excited about those picks, no doubt. It's going to be fun to watch them develop and evolve.
And let's not forget about Gio Manu either. We can throw. That's another offensive lineman that's going to be involved.
Yeah,
there.
And Skip's there too. So you figure the net. Skip's on a 1-year deal. You would like to see Manu take that after the season eventually. Obviously you'd want to see that, but I think they have maybe higher hopes for Manu than that. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting camp. Now the Lions go into 6th round. They got pick 196 in one of the deals. I'm looking back here with New England, and they end up getting Ahmed Hassanin out of Boise State, their edge rusher. They get the edge rusher. Now he was not high on our board. We didn't do a lot of scouting on him. He's kind of been under the radar a little bit, but the Lions take him in the 6th round. Coach, there's a lot to like on. I think he's the first draft pick ever. It's that was born out of Egypt, because he's from Cairo.
First Egyptian ever drafted.
Yep. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, certainly for him and anyone from Egypt that's a fan. But talk about him.
Yeah, well, this is yet another player that played in the college football playoff this past year.
Yeah.
We've now talked about 3 of them, and we're going to talk about some more yet. And the other 2 guys played at Arkansas and at LSU, were the other 2 that didn't play in the college playoff. So Ahmed Hassanin is a high caliber player out of Boise State University, which is yet another great football power at the college level. They're in the group of 5, but they probably are the best overall group of 5 team out there. And he made a ton of plays behind the line of scrimmage with the Boise State Broncos. 32 tackles for loss, 22 sacks the last 2 seasons. Those are huge numbers. We did not talk about those kinds of numbers often in our previews of edge rushers. He had elite production in regards to making plays behind the line of scrimmage. Big, powerful puncher, so he can anchor and play that strong end. He's not super tall, about 6'2", 6'2.5". Probably this is why he is a day 3 pick. But he comes in around 260 pounds. So he's got a little anchor to him. And he kind of plays with that. So this is another guy that can play the run very, very well. And he is absolutely relentless after in pursuit there. To call him a grit player is one thing, but to call him an absolute machine in there, he's all wrong for a lot of blockers. I mean, he just doesn't stop moving. And and every play is like his last. Every play is like his last. He is an emotional time bomb, bridled and controlled into a disciplined football player, the type of player you want playing defense for you. And he's got that kind of pop and twitch that comes off the ball like that. And he does get after it. He ran a 4.77 40 as an edge. That's among the higher ones. There's some that, okay, Abdul Carter is a little faster, and maybe some other guys are too, but they're also not 6'2", 260 pounds. This is a guy that can really play the strong end if you want to get into kind of the high school 5-man front type of thinking process. That he can play that old school Mean Joe Green, Ed Jones, Deacon Jones type defensive end. He can be that type of guy, which allows maybe like a Hutch to be able to come freer and play wider and to be able to do different things. He bench pressed 225 27 times. Everything you see about this guy shows that he's got great work ethic. He's got a warrior's mentality, Drew. Ahmed Hassanin is an intriguing prospect, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he becomes a fan favorite here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, he already is in my book. Hassanin, I saw the clip of him getting the call from Campbell, and through tears, he's telling him, "I am willing to die on the field for you, Coach." Coach Shield, I would think if you heard that from one of your players, that might elicit tears of joy from you too. That's
maybe in a younger era, the tears, but that is certainly what you like to hear. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just with that motor and that drive and that desire to win, it's that'll compensate for a lot of other things that maybe you're lacking or whatever. Like you said, he's 6'2", he's not 6'5". I get it.
Yeah, those are the 2 big things he's lacking. There's size and length. Outside of that, what you mentioned says it all.
He's a nice player, and I think they got really, really good value here in the 6th round, late in the 6th round. So, Marcus Davenport's re-signed, but we know. When he plays, he's good. He doesn't play much. But the Lions didn't take a huge risk in signing that 1-year contract. It's not like they're paying Marcus Davenport $50 million this year, folks. So you can relax. Like you said, there's still Pascal there. Now there's Hassanin. There's Onwuzurike can play in the end. Do they have an Aiden Hutchinson?
Al-Qadim
Muhammad as well. Yeah, he played well last year, very well last year in place of Hutch. Are these guys going to be at the level of Hutch? No, but very few are. I would love to have gotten Abdul Carter, Coach. That would have been great, but he got picked in the 3rd pick overall this year. This is a nice pick here. The Lions addressed the position. And by the way, I want to talk about this before we move on. And because we openly were questioning this amongst ourselves, with our other partners, Uper Brad and Detroit's Finest, Justin Merrick, when we were talking, do we think there's another plan here at edge? And it seems like Zadarius Smith's still out there. So he's still there. It's a possibility. They haven't, and they've even said, we've talked to him. That's all they're saying. They've kept in touch. Do you think that that's a possibility still?
Oh yeah, I mean I think they signed his nephew as an undrafted free agent out of Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do think there's a possibility that he could wind up back here. Certainly. Do we need to bring him back here? That'll be ultimately what we need to determine. Is what we have on this roster going to be what we are able to roll with? Hey, listen, guys. I mean, you can't have everything you want when you have multiple needs, and you're also drafting in a position that you haven't really drafted in too often and is pretty deep. And a lot of those players were coming off the board in between your picks. I mean, we have other things to address, and our board, went different ways. Does that mean that we still value the edge position as a position of need? We do. I think we do. That being said, was it addressed with Hassanin? It sure was. And it was also addressed with players that barely played last year because they got hurt. So, Pat O'Connor's another guy that we need to talk about as a defensive lineman that's still on this football team that I think will make it and contribute. So, I mean, hey, are we going to continue to look for are we looking at an edge rusher next year in the draft? We might be, and we probably will be, but I mean, this is how this one worked out. So to say that we didn't address it, I think Ahmad Hassanin is going to prove that is a false statement.
Yeah, I like it. I like that pick, and I do like that they do have options still to add if they need to, if they want to. You would like to think this time next year we're not talking about the edge position because Hassanin is somehow locked in that spot and life is good, right? So let's see what happens. But Coach, let's talk about the next pick because this pick 230 was part of that initial trade in the second round with Jacksonville to move up to get Ratledge. So Brad Holmes went back to Athens again and got a safety out of Georgia, Dan Jackson, with pick number 230. Talk about Dan Jackson.
Yeah, this is a player that is a grit definition here. This is a true culture pick. This is a Dan Campbell type pick. This is a Dan Campbell type profile player. Walked on to the University of Georgia. And I'll say, well, that must mean he wasn't very good. They don't just take everybody. He still had the opportunity to make that football team. So he's a very, very good football player that had opportunities, probably much like Isaac Tesla did, at least like at a Hillsdale College or somewhere thereabouts. Dan Jackson walked on to the University of Georgia and became an absolute special teams stalwart during his time there. Phenomenal career as a special teams player, and started at safety his senior campaign and was a third-team All-SEC football player. He's very no-nonsense, very direct guy, doesn't really enjoy talking media too much, doesn't spend a whole lot of time with his social media profile. He does his thing out there, and he is very, very good at it. He played 6 years, and he was a national champion over at, the University of Georgia. So we have actually 4 players that have won national championships at the college level playing here. So we have guys that know what it takes to be a winner at the highest level in college, which usually transitions to a great culture. So he's got very good speed. He can run. Obviously he's not going to get to this level if he can't. And he's a very physical football player. Likes contact, induces contact, initiates contact. Is really comes up on the run like nobody's better business. This is a guy that hurts out there as a football player. I mean, you sting when you get a little taste of him. And he is going to be a special teams contributor. Drew, I didn't question the pick at all. I just saw these 7th round picks as guys, and I'm just kind of scraping through the roster a little bit as guys that were going to be, these might be safe players that are good guys that come from real good football programs and understand winning football, that, they're going to be able to pocket and get on the special or on the practice squad, at the end of August here, and kind of fortify with that kind of group. And then maybe that will wind up being the case. But Drew, my taste kind of changed with Dan Jackson. I see a guy that's going to be on the 53 man and do some special teams work this year. What about you?
Yeah, no question about it. I to me, it's a win when you're talking about a 7th round pick who's going to contribute right away, and he will on special teams. And quite frankly, I get it. You take a look at the at an NFL rosters, and you want to see your picks getting reps. Well, they've got Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch back there. That's not going to, he's not going to bump either one of them out. But I tell you what, they did lose Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who was their special teams captain. You need a guy like Dan Jackson out there who in a pinch is going to be able to play for you, but on special teams, he's going to absolutely be a concern out there without question. So I really like the pick. They did need a 4th safety. They have it. So I like that it shores up that group, and it also made the special teams a lot better. So to me, he's already at the floor unless something stupid happens, which I'm not anticipating. And then after that, let's see where it goes. But I like Dan Jackson. I think it's a nice pick, good culture pick too, like you said, Coach. Now we look at the next pick, our another 7th rounder at 244, and this is our other receiver, Dominic Lovett, out of University of Georgia. Coach, talk about him. He was he was pretty low on our wide receiver board, but I'll tell you what, looking at his I was looking at NFL.com even before we recorded here. They actually rate him as somebody who could eventually be a starter in the NFL. That's pretty high praise for a guy picked in the 7th round. Talk about Dominic Lovett.
Well, he transferred to Georgia from Missouri and was highly productive at Missouri. He was an all SEC player at Missouri. So he went into the culture of and transferred up to the culture. Now he is a guy that did not win a national championship. He played, I think, the last 2 years at Georgia, where Michigan and Ohio State won the national championships. Yep. But nonetheless, Dominic Lovett produced there as well, mainly out of the slot. So we've kind of drafted 2 slot receivers in this draft. And they're really the 30th and 47th receivers, respectively, on our boards. So these were guys a little bit further down our boards that were in those, like you had mentioned earlier, Brad Holmes areas where he steals the show. And what you get with Dominic Lovett is a guy who was highly productive, very productive, and he can burn it. He's 4.4 speed. He's a great route runner. He's not afraid to run across the middle and make plays. He's was a very effective gunner on special teams, on the punt team at both Missouri and at Georgia. And he plays in a real comfortable, creative ability, and really understands the movements of the modern wide receiver in regards to route running and selling routes and those kinds of things. So yeah, I'm a little perplexed too. Where does he fit, Drew? And I guess of all of our draft picks, I still wonder about this one because we put such value on Isaac Tesla and what he eventually will bring to the table. Where does Dominic Lovett feel? And does this mean we are really, looking to possibly not do something beyond 2 years from now with some of our other wide receivers? Just how much movement are we going to take? Well, I guess we have guys like Khalif Raymond and some of these other players that we are looking to maybe to move on from in a couple of years. But Drew, we drafted 2 receivers too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that surprised me. Not shocked, but surprised me. But then when I look at it, they did at the time they hadn't given the 5th-year option to JMO yet.
No.
And there was a lot of talk that he might be on the block. And that I get that was a rumor, but it wasn't an illogical rumor. It kind of made sense. Am I glad they didn't do it and they're going to have him? Yeah, I'm glad. I like JMO. I have no problem with Jameson Williams. I think, and I thought this about Kirby Joseph, I didn't think they'd be able to re-sign him, and they did. And then when you draft 2 receivers, Coach, it kind of tells you they're preparing, and Holmes almost basically said, can we pay everybody? No, we can't. Well, that's where it's at, folks, and I think they're creating competition. Lovett's going to compete with Antoine Green, and Tom Kennedy for that final that spot, and that's assuming they keep 6 receivers on the roster, because you've got St. Brown, Williams, and Tesla, Patrick, and Raymond. There's your 5. So if you keep a 6th, it's going to be one of the 3 I mentioned, Kennedy, Lovett, or Antoine Green. Green's a 7th round pick. Kennedy's was undrafted.
Been around for a long time.
Been around for a long time, and in spot duties played well. So there's going to be a hell of a competition there. Certainly having special teams experience is going to be a necessity. If you're not playing special teams and want to be a 6th receiver, you're not going to be a 6th receiver. It's just not going to happen. So I'm curious. He's only 5'10", but he ran a 4.4 40. He's got good range, though. I watched some of his tape. He can jump. He's got good range for his size. I would just say it's not like he's got exceptional length, but he makes plays. He makes plays, and he impressed at the combine. So I like him. I'm not enamored with the pick per se, but it's fine. I mean, the Lions are deep. I mean, you like you said earlier, you don't get to be 15-2 with the amount of injuries they had on the defensive side of the football. I mean, San Francisco had the identical situation on the offensive side of the ball, and they finished out of the playoffs. Understandable. I mean, when you lose Ayuk and McCaffrey, I mean, and that's going to kill you. Well, the Lions lost a lot. I'm not going to get into it, but they were able to keep. Next man up was there, but then if that guy went down, well, now you're struggling. And they still had the season they had. They're a deep, deep football team, so they had the luxury of being able to fortify a position group that maybe they just wanted a little more competition at. And let's face it, assuming they can't re-sign Williams after he does become a free agent, which will be after the 2026 season now, who do they have that guy on the roster? Is it going to be a Tesla, or do they need to look elsewhere? Or does the cap go up enough where they can afford JMO? Who knows? But they bought themselves that extra year with the 5th-year option, so I do like that.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. So
me too. It does kind of put their pecking order to it, so to speak. But I do look forward to seeing what the kid can do. If the kid's getting open all preseason long and making plays, and we do get a little extra. When we with playing in the Hall of Fame game this year, he'll get a little extra time to really show his wares. He's going to play a lot in that game. So, if he's just getting open nonstop and making all sorts of catches out there, we've got a good problem on our hands. Absolutely.
Overall, I guess I agree with you. It was a meat and potatoes draft. I give it a solid B. It wasn't. They didn't get spectacular skill position names, things like that, but they got great value everywhere. They did trade to get, trade some draft capital to get there. So that's where, there's a little hesitation, but I didn't see anyone really bag on the draft at all. I saw grades anywhere from A- to C+ was the lowest that I personally saw. Most of it was in the B range. Pretty much the NFC North. I liked what the Bears did with their draft. As a fan, I don't, but I got to say it like it is. I mean, with their offseason and their draft shit, I mean, they're going to be a handful. The Vikings helped themselves in the draft and in free agency. The Packers helped themselves in the draft. It's going to be a hell of a division. It's going to be one hell of a division this year. And man, I mean, you had a 15-2 team and a 14-3 team in Minnesota coming back in that, and then you've got another playoff team in Green Bay, and now you've got the Bears team that you could argue very easily that they've improved the most in the division. It's going to be a hell of a season. Your thoughts on the NFC North overall?
Yeah, I still have us as the number one.
Mm-hmm.
I still have us as the number one. I think there's going to be growing pains in the Twin Cities. You now have essentially a rookie quarterback taking the helm there, or at least it looks like JJ is going to get the opportunity to lead the pack there. Yeah. And there are some transitions going on defense there. They're not going for it. We're not going 15-2, and the Vikings are certainly not going 14-3. The Chicago Bears are very much due to show some significant improvement here with what they've done in regards to their coaching and how they're fortifying things over there. They're going to get better. Are they going to be an NFC Central contender next year? I think there's a possibility that they could feel that way through the middle portion of the season. However, I think they still have a little ways to go. Green Bay has been right there, kind of in, I guess, our shadow the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But has also performed pretty well. Now they were also dinged up last year, and they didn't respond quite the same as the Detroit Lions did to those injuries. That being said, they have some interesting pieces, and they just drafted a big hotshot wide receiver that they're all fired up about in Matthew Golden. So, yeah, as they should be. So, do I feel like we're in a very competitive division that could have multiple or more than 2 playoff teams in it? I do. We did last year.
Yep.
And do I feel like we are in a division that a team could be maybe as good as 10-7 and be in last place? I do.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very competitive division. We play the Bears, the Pack, and the Vikings twice, and that in of itself is going to prepare you for the playoffs, just playing in those types of teams, and why we need to be deep, because there are going to be players that are just a little bit more on, and they're going to be counted on from week to week than others. And we drafted a lot of those type of guys that can be that kind of player.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was watching the Ozzie and Keats podcast when Coach Campbell was on there, and he said it was a great episode. I recommend. It's a great podcast. But he said, we have a tough schedule and we got to play a lot of teams, but guess what? They got to play us. And it's like, exactly. Yeah. They're playing a lot of tough teams, but guess what? The Lions are an absolute bitch to play against. I guarantee no one's looking forward to that. So, the Lions are the hunted, certainly, they've won the division now 2 years in a row, and which is awesome. Looking to three-peat there, but certainly their aspirations are a little further down the road, more like Super Bowl. So, it is and that's a great situation. We haven't had those kind of conversations since the mid-90s, being realistic. So this is exciting for Lions football. Trust me, we didn't see this before ever, not in our lifetime. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be a good year. It's not going to go 15-2. You're right, Coach. And, but you certainly hope we won't have the rash of injuries that took place last year. The odds are you won't. I mean, because you like to think that's an anomaly, what happened last year.
Oh, you that banged up?
Yeah. And, I'm not worried about Hutch being ready. I mean, significant injury, but a clean break, that heals well. And by all accounts, he's healing well. This isn't a knee or an ankle or a shoulder, something that could degenerate and is going to be a problem for the long haul. This should be done and over with once camp starts. So that's a good thing. A little concerned about McNeil. I'm sure he'll be ready to go when he's ready to go. You hope sooner than later. But lots to look forward to. Can't wait for camp. They did cancel the mini camp because of the Hall of Fame game. So that's kind of the trade-off there. But that's okay. I mean, you want to play against other teams and get reps against other players. So, always helpful. So we'll see how that works out. But Coach, any final thoughts about the draft before we wrap it up?
No, hey, they drafted high caliber players from very big winning culture programs, teams that have won national championships, been to college playoff, highly competitive players that played on the big stage and in big games and in big programs that do things a lot like the Detroit Lions. So they did very, very well. They knew exactly what they were getting with these players.
Yeah. The winning pedigree, and I like that they're drafting guys that are they play hard.
And they want to be here.
They want to be here. Yes, exactly. So I was excited about last year. I'm just excited about this year. High hopes for this team this year, Coach. Looking forward to covering it all season long. So thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to hit the like button on the video. And don't forget to catch us on the ESPN network every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on the Roku channel. So for Coach Andy Schill, I'm Drew. Thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate your support, and we will talk to you next week. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN Network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one, Sports Peninsula Podcast.